Do you want to do this and not have a mental fucking breakdown? So first off, drop a nice little grid. Make it however big you want. Subdivide it a lot. Then nice little transform, rotate it to make it go up. Then you can use the bend tool to hold it like this. It's kind of an annoying tool to use, but I mean if you don't know what you're doing, but really you just press N on the viewport and it scales the bounds correctly. Then you can press B until the axis you want is correct. So as you can see, this is right. And then at the bend, you just go 360, and it makes a nice little cylinder. Then nice little transform, and the pivot translate. If you write these expressions, CX, CY, CZ, it'll always center the pivot on the geometry so you can move it. And like this, you can just center it on the origin. Then nice little fuse, so we get rid of the fucking seam. Because later if you simulate, you're gonna have issues with the seam. So just fuse. 0.02 seems fine to me. Then I just group half of it because I want the shot to be like this. So I don't need to be simulating behind. That's just stupid. So just, you know, blast it off. So you have a nice little, you know, center your camera like this. You don't have to do this, of course. You can just make a fucking rippling cylinder, I guess. I don't fucking know. This comes into play later, but I mean, you can just do it right now. It's just a nice UV unwrap. You go to the UV viewport and you check UVs on this. There are none, so just, you know, UV unwrap and then UV quick shade, so you get all the squares in the viewport, so you see the UV correctly. And then we're gonna attribute transfer that later, but so you can actually shade it in like Blender, because I'm not rendering on fucking Mantra, it's too slow. Go ahead, make an attribute wrangle, and you're gonna want to create a stop group, which is going to be this red part, because otherwise the whole geometry is going to start floating away, and you want to pin that. So the code is as follows. Nice little big window. It's not any bigger, it's just I at stop group equals position Y, smaller than channel float threshold, and then an if statement. So if I as stop group, which is the integer we just made, is equal to 1, then a nice little fucking brackets, set point group, which is an expression you can read about on the Houdini documentation. It's really good. But yeah, 0 means the first geometry input, because it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, because it's a coding or whatever. Stop group is the name of the group that I want to create. Then at point num just means I want those points. Like, you can set specific point numbers in here, but if you just write at point num, it just takes all the points with the I stop group equals to 1. Then 1 here means that you want to put it in the group, and set is you can either put set or toggle here. I don't really know the difference. It's not very clear in the documentation, or maybe I'm just stupid, I don't fucking know. But yeah, write this, and then under that, I at stopped equals 1, which means that if the point is under the threshold, so it has I at stop group equals 1, it also has I at stop equals 1. And stopped is an attribute for the Vellum solver that we're going to be using here. It means that these points are not affected by the simulation at all. So just do that, and you got yourself your nice little group. Then another attribute wrangle with pretty much the same code, except it's I at frac group with p.y bigger than threshold, not smaller than this time. And then if the fracture group is equal to 1, you set point group in fracture group, which is going to be for the Voronoi fracture we're going to be doing, because of course there's a gap between the two groups here, but you don't want, I mean, I didn't want the fracture to go all the way through. I'm going to promote this group to a primitive group, then put down a scatter with a that points to the fracture group, and force total count 450. On this side, I blasted not fracture group, otherwise it's gonna shatter the whole geometry instead of just a fracture group we don't fucking want. So you run the Voronoi, and it's gonna just fracture this. Oh, you also, on the Voronoi, you want to uncheck create interior surfaces, otherwise it's gonna bug out, and do this. Well, which is great, honestly, if you like this type of shit. It does this because it has no thickness. If you did add thickness, which I did try and do, you can do that, but when you blast, then there's going to be an open edge here, and it's still going to go crazy, so you're going to have to poly bridge that edge, and it's just fucking annoying. Like, the effect I want, it looks good with 0 thickness, so honestly, whatever. Then, to the side, still, I blasted fracture group, so that I have, you know, the rest of the thing, see? So then I merged together the Voronoi and that, so I have, you know, the whole geometry. Then I'm gonna remove inside faces, because that's gonna fuck up the Vellum solver. I've done a Vellum cloth. I don't think I changed anything here. I did change the stiffness, I think. I put it all the way up here on the stretch. And on the bend, I put it to 0.000001. Then Vellum constraints, Vellum weld. However, it's not a weld, it's actually a glue because I changed it, but yeah, just put Vellum constraints down and then select glue. Glue as the constraint type. It runs over primitives, define pieces from attribute, name. I think I changed this. Yes, I did. Okay, I changed this to from attribute and I called it name because the Voronoi fracture, it creates pieces with the name attribute. Where is it? There you go. Name. I played around with these values until there were no more gaps. Because if you run a default and you sim it, you're gonna see as the whole thing moves, there's gonna be gaps between the pieces. That's annoying. So I'll just change these. You can copy my settings if you want. I set the breaking threshold here. I set it to 1 and with no scaling, and the type is stretch distance. Doesn't really matter which type it is. I'm referencing the break threshold attribute with a bounding box in here, so you might want to be transforming up or down both the constraint and the geo from this, so it just goes to the bounding box however you want it to look. I don't fucking know, but yeah, so this one is referenced from this one. To reference something, it means that if I change a value on this, it's going to transfer to this. And to do that, you can just press Control-Shift-Alt and then drag. And now this will depend from that one, which is neat. So yeah, I transformed them up by 0.05, just because it would do its thing. But then, yeah, okay, sure, just do that. Or don't, see how it looks and then do it, but whatever. Then you can drop a Vellum solver. I changed the gravity to 0, the wind to 1, and the wind drag to 1. Because I want the movement to be to look like it's vaguely, like, I don't know, underwater or something like weird. I don't want it to look just like it's just fucking flapping in the wind. Drop a pop wind, set the amplitude to 1.4. Then drop a nice little sob solver and change the data name to constraint geometry, otherwise it won't work. Thank you for that, Sota. You know how long it took me to find out that it would only work with constraint geometry? Drop down a group and enable the bounding box, group type points, otherwise it won't work. And then set where you want your initial pieces to be breaking off. For me, I just selected like the first few rows of points with the bounding box, make sure it's big enough. Drop down an attribute, create. Name is temperature and the value is 10. Then a nice pyro source node. Particle separation here, it doesn't need to be high because this is just for breaking constraints. You're not actually simming anything, so you have to put it down there, but you don't have to make it look good, so whatever. So this is source smoke. Then a pyro source spread, you don't need to drop that down. And for right here, I set the rate to 0.02, so it spreads lower. Search radius 0.4, max neighbors 50, you can play around with these values. Fuel, initial fuel 1, that's default. Injection rate 0.2. Injection rate is after it spreads, it goes down. It's going to keep injecting fuels in the burn points at this rate, 0.2. And then if you want to visualize what it's doing, you just click on burn here and you can play it. And as you see, it's spreading. The red values is burn equals 1, and the light blue or whatever is burn equal 0.2, which is the injection rate, with a bit of noise. As you can see, there is noise in the injection and the temperature change. You can play around with this to have different shapes. I think this is all default. If it's not, you can just copy these values. But yeah, set this back to none, otherwise it's gonna color your fucking geometry. Then this is useless, by the way, don't look at that. But attribute copy. Down here, right input is the part source, left input is dot geometry. You're gonna want to copy burn. Then this is also useless, don't worry about that. But here, drop a group, call the burn, and set the base group expression to @burn bigger than 0, and the group type is points. Then promote that to prims. Points to primitives, keep the name the same. Color if you want to see it, I guess, I don't know. And then nice attribute wrangle runs over primitives, because the break threshold runs over primitives. It's a primitive attribute. F at break threshold equals 0, semicolon, because depressed girl tattoo. Make sure you're visualizing the attribute wrangle. Oh, sometimes when you hop out of here and you sim, it's not gonna sim properly. Like, you're not gonna see pieces detaching. You can just come back in here and then visualize the color and then back to the attribute wrangle, and when you go out, it's gonna work. So back one level, make sure you're visualized onto force here. Go back out, visualize your Vellum solver, and then play. And you should be seeing this, like, from the start, pieces detaching. If it's not, as I said, go back into the SOP solver and then visualize the color and then back to the attribute wrangle. It should fix it. But shut up, Houdini. Shut up. Yeah, just go back in here and visualize the dog shit. Okay. Put down a nice little null called out wall. Okay, then you're gonna want to cache that out real quick. Just drop a file cache, point it to wherever the fuck you want. Then you're gonna want to save frame range all the way to the end, and then do that real quick. And then I'm gonna take a shit right now. I'll leave you with some ambient music. Here's a Chinese concert of Ching Cheng Honchi. Now, once you cache this, there are two options: left or down. You pick. That's right, left. Drop down a group node. You call it heat. Wow. I swear to God. Let me reopen this real quick. Oh, Sota, how do you have the studio who... Anyways, create a group called Heat with a bounding box. It would be... No, actually, make it the same as the one you made in the SOP solver. Just copy that. Then, attribute create temperature, same thing, just copy that one. Particle source, you can copy that one, but set the particle separation to 0.025. You want this to look good. Then a particle source spread, which is the exact same as that one. And then you want to set a volume rasterize attributes down here. You want to rasterize burn, density, and temperature. So the voxel size is the same as the particle source spread voxel size, so 0.025. Particle scale 1, filter size, that's default, and then set velocity blur, because that looks pretty good. It's default, I believe. Yeah, and then a particle solver. You don't need to go the DOP solver route with this. You just want, so voxel size 0.01, that's what looks good for me. If your PC can handle it, just set it higher, honestly. Then close below 4.5. That means that under 4.5, it won't sim. So the sim is lighter. Then for the solving, these are my settings. The shape, these are my settings. This is just like the numbers game. Just play with it, or just copy mine. As you can see, look. I think this is default. Doesn't really matter. The look doesn't matter. This is what I have here. There you go. Yeah, these are the things you want to bring into the sim, by the way. Density, temperature, burn, and velocity. Just copy these. If you know what you're doing, you can do it yourself or just copy them. Dive inside. And what I did is I put a gas shred on it because it looked better. These are my settings for the shred. You can play with these as well. There you go. So I'll back out here. Drop down a convert VDB because we're going to be rendering this in Blender because Mantra is too slow for my liking. And on the drop down here, you want to select density, flame, temperature, vel X, vel Y, vel Z, and then convert to VDB. Then drop down a file cache, point it wherever you want. It's going to be pretty heavy, like I think 100 something gigs. And then the frame range, all, and then it should look something like this. Okay, you get the gist of it. It's not gonna look like fire in the final render. I'm just gonna keep the density field, but I did tell you to keep the other fields in the convert VDB if you want to play around with them in the Blender shading. Let's go back a bit to the pyro source spread and drop a null called outspread. These nulls you don't need to drop them, but they're pretty useful. So you don't need this attribute wrangle. After the null, just drop down a group called active points with @burn 0. Then an attribute wrangle here. This is to have, like, not every point emitting particles, because I didn't like how uniform that was. So I just did this real quick. It's just an if statement on the group active points, active PT. It runs over points, and the statement is if rand, so use the rand function, PT num, is smaller than channel threshold, then it's going to remove point 0 PT num, so it's going to delete the point. And the threshold is this, 0.98. Oh, by the way, sorry, I didn't say this. To create these thresholds, you can just press this when you're done typing the code. It's going to create them. Drop down a pop net. Drop down a pop advect by volumes and select velocity source SOP. And as your SOP, you want to point it to out smoke, which is a null you're going to want to put after you cache the smoke thing. And reference it here. Field name velocity, velocity scale 1, advection type update velocity, and velocity blend 0.6. You can play around with this. But yeah, that's all you need. Drop down a pop wind with wind velocity. The important thing is that it goes up. So 3 on the Y. This set it to whatever you want. Air resistance 1, amplitude 1, swirl size. Just you can copy these or play around with them. Pop drag, air resistance 6. I took this very high because I like the motion. It did. Yeah, you're gonna need to drop down a pop solver, a pop object, a pop source, and connect them. Then go to your pop source, and on the source, you're gonna want to set it to all points and use first context geometry. And then as source group, just set it to active point. Then birth, just nothing, just life expectancy. I set it to 2 with the life variance of 4. Which means life is either 2 or 6. It's on positive jitter birth time. Interpolate source back, it looks good. And use point velocity, because that's what you wanted to use. Attribute, use inherited velocity. Yep, sure, that's all good. Oh yeah, I did put down you can put a merge here and merge in a pop steer cohesion. I did that because so when they emit, they all go together and they do the little strands that I have that look really nice. You don't have to do this, do it if you want to. Force scale to 50, no field of view because I just wanted to grab all the close ones. Searcher is 0.2, that's all you need. You can drop down a VDB from particles with voxel size 0.0025 because the particles are really small. Point radius scale 1, minimum radius in voxels. You have to change this to a low number, otherwise it won't pick up the particles because they're very small. So yeah, it should be looking like this. Then a VDB reshape SDF with a close, set the close on 12. At the end, important thing is convert to polygons. And you're gonna have, these little things, and then they're gonna be little strands. File cache this out to whatever you want. Same, save frame range, all of it. Then drop down an attribute transfer on points. You want to transfer a V. And on the left input, you keep the file cache. On the right input, you go back to the popnet so you can grab the V. Because if you're doing the whole VDB route, then it won't grab the velocity. So just grab it back from the popnet. So now they have velocities. Yeah, as you can see, they have velocities, whereas before they did not. As you can see, you can visualize velocities by pressing this little button here. Up particles if you want. I like nulls. I like to close shit down with nulls so I know what is what. So we have our main fire, our particles, and our wall. Now, what I did do is I have a second fire. So the pieces, they catch fire midair, which I really liked. And they also, the parts that are burning, they slowly disappear, like they're actually catching fire and burning down. So after your file cache for the wall, drop down a group, stop. And I called it second burn by bounding box, and I set this bounding box to be a bit above the wall so they catch fire after a while they're floating up. So yeah, I mean, just put it wherever you want. Ah, finally. Okay, now I had to sim this a bit, but as you can see, the pieces, they go in and they get picked up at the group. Now, moment of truth, let's see if these... Oh. Nope, okay, those attribute wrangles are completely useless. So just drop down a group, then attribute create temperature with value 1 on the group second burn, which is from this. Attribute noise for the temperature. You can copy my values, you do whatever the fuck you want here, I don't care. Then a power source on 0.0075. There you go. And then another power source spread with these nice little values. I believe it is the same as usual. Yep. I think it's the same, but yeah, do that. Then a volume restores attributes, your restorizing burn and temperature. Voxel size is the same as the power source. What I did here is copy parameter and then paste relative references to get this green shit so they're linked. Velocity, blur, all that good shit. Then on the power solver, go ahead, voxel size still the same as the power source. Close below 4.5 as before. Solving, dissipation. You can play with these or copy mine. Sourcing, this is what you're gonna need. Density, temperature, burn and flame, and bell. Yep. So do that. Then you're gonna drop a nice little convert VDB and you wanna get flame, temperature, velocity X, velocity Y, velocity Z. And if you want density, I didn't use it in the end, but the main ones are flame and temperature. Do that, cache it out to wherever you want. So once you did that, you cached your fire. You're gonna want to get back to the pyro source spread. Attribute copy, you're copying burn on points. Then an ISA attribute wrangle with this if statement. So if burn is bigger than 0 and smaller than 1, set point group in group cock. Yeah, very creative. In group cock, with a PT num and then, point number 1 and the set. You can visualize this group if you want. It's not visible here for the moment because I haven't simmed it enough. See? It's grabbing some points here. Anyways, you blast the group cock here. So you're deleting the group. As you can see, it deletes this, which is the only part that it's grabbed for now. But yeah, drop down. This is to remove the points as they burn. Then you drop down a clean and remove the generate prims. And then use points, because if you don't, basically you're just gonna have like floating points. Not now, but later in the sim you're gonna have them, and you don't want that. Then from this clean, you remember the UV thing we were doing before? So go back up here, grab the UV quick shade that we did from the unwrap on the tube. Okay, all the way down here, slap it on UV transfer. Add UV transfer to the new geometry that we simmed. The target geometry is the sim geometry, and the source geometry is the UV quick shade here. Transfer it so they still have UVs mid the air, so you can shade it. They're a nice little null, and then we're gonna do all the rendering stuff. So for the VDBs, you already got them by doing the whole fucking file cache stick with the VDB thing. But yeah, so first off, let's cache this one out, which is going to be your wall geometry, which removes itself while it burns. So drop down a raw alembic and set it to render frame range from 1 to 220, point it to wherever you want, and this is how you have to call it. So name.$f.abc, just render this out, then hop back to your particles, your out particles thing, Drop down another drop alembic and set it to render the frame range. I only did 100 frames for this project, but you can do however many you want. Always name.rf.abc. Render this out, and now you have all you need. You have your main fire, your wall geometry, your particles, and you also have your secondary fire. Now, let's get to the rendering stuff, which is quite fun. So close Houdini down, and then open Blender. Go to File, Import, Alembic, and find wherever the fuck you pointed that. Select, for example, the particles. Select the first one, and click Is Sequence. Import Alembic. And now you have it. You can play it a bit. There you go. There they are. These are your particles. They should look like this. Very nice. Then, import your wall. There you go. Oh, I completely forgot. You're gonna see when you import your walls, it's going to have big holes in it. And if you go in here, it's gonna tell you that there is an error with the generate geometry or whatever. So, my bad. Open Houdini back up. Hop back in here, cancel whatever the fuck it's doing. Okay, so import your wall alembic that you rendered out right here. So import it with an alembic, just alembic node, and then import it. Remember to unpack, delay the load primitives, and no poly soup. We don't like soup. So do that, drop down a clean, and I want you to click consolidate points, remove the generate primitives, reverse winding, fix overlaps, delete overlap pairs, remove unused points. Don't click orient polygons or it's gonna fuck everything up. Then drop down a nice little subdivide on depth 1. It's gonna do these lines, but it won't be a problem for how we're gonna shade this. Then a nice fuse, because you wanna close those holes. Snap distance 0.0085. This is gonna be really visible in Blender. So just close it with the fuse. There you go. Your points. Yep. Then re-render this with a different name. Go back to Blender, import it, and no more holes. Or I mean, almost. There is one there, but honestly, who cares? It won't even be visible. So you have your nice little thingy. Now for the VDB, press Shift A, and then click on Volume. Import Open VDB. There you go. Import Open VDB Volume. There it is. Make sure you go to this little cloud icon here, click Is Sequence, number of frames. I don't remember how many frames I render this. I'm gonna do 100 because that's how long my project is. But just set it to the correct number of frames. Give it a sec. There it is. Now you have all your fields here, as you can see. So once you import your volume, go ahead and switch your render engines to cycles, preview, whatever. But we're gonna figure that out later. Just click on cycles, go back to the cloud icon. Here you're going to see under the render tab, you're going to see velocity grid vel and velocity grid frame. Change that to second. Because all of these other guys are using second, I believe. Yep, see? If you go to your alembics, they're all using second. So make sure that everything is set to second when you import it on the velocity, otherwise it won't blur. Not that we're going to blur this big one, but it's always cool to have. Then import your second fire. Boom, this sequence, 100 frames. All your fields are here. On render, set it to second. Okay, so what I did in my project is I went to the main fire, and I didn't want to blur this because it took like 5 times the amount of time to render, and it looked worse. So on this box here, uncheck motion blur, and then on the cloud icon, turn the velocity scale down to 0. I don't know why. Just if you uncheck motion blur and don't turn down the velocity scale, it still fucking blurs it. So fuck you too, I guess. But yeah, that's all you need to do right here. I want you to go to Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, and type in Blender Kit. Click on this and give it a nice little folder to get its stuff in. That's it. You might have to, you do have to sign up, make an account, but it's free. And then you're gonna have this little panel here. You can bring it up by pressing N. Go down to Blender Kit, and you go to Materials. Tap on the eye. You're gonna have your little materials here. you can search for example, procedural lava, which is what I used. I used one of these for my particles, which was this one. I think it was this one. Yeah, but honestly, you can pick whatever. Then for the grid, I use a procedural brick material. Procedural brick. And it was this one that I used. The other ones I tried weren't working for some reason. But yeah, try and see how it looks in rendered view. Oh, make sure that before you click rendered view, on edit preferences system, you have optics selected with both your GPU and CPU is going to be faster. Might want to drop down a sun so you can actually fucking see what's going on. Maybe up the brightness of the sun, the angle, so you can actually see. You're serious. Alright, well, I don't know why it's broken now. It was working when I did it. If you can find workaround, but you can just use the generated thing that I was talking about before, it's still gonna work. It's not a big issue. But I did manage to fix it when I did it. I was fiddling around in here and it just fixed itself. But yeah, it can sometimes be finicky to render in Blender some, you know, Houdini stuff. But trade-off is it's way faster, so, you know, do whatever you want. For the fire, for example, go to the creating tab, and on the material, just go press new, and it's going to give you a principal volume material, and in here you can, so the second fire is the pieces that are actually on fire. Okay, the values I used for the secondary fire is 50 on the black body intensity and 2500 on the temperature. Then one thing I didn't like is the particles. In rendered view, if you actually go and watch them, yours are gonna be, they're gonna have a big radius. You're gonna want to go in the lava material that you put on there, and check if it has a displacement. If it does, you can set the scale to 0 or something really, really low, and it won't expand them. But yeah, I just took it off. It doesn't need displacement. Then for the main fire, am I lagging? Bet I am. Anyways, is this smoky thing? For that, my settings are these. Density 1.5, I thought it looked good. And that's it. Now, for this nice blue tint that I got going, first off, I got the sun on strength 4, angle 25, and then I set it to this light blue color, because in the scene, I was replicating the scene from the Sandman, which I'm going to put on screen now. So I kind of wanted the atmosphere to be the same, even though I then went my own path and made it look how I want it and not how I showed it. But yeah, just make the sun fucking blue. And if you go into the world tab here, you can set the background to, you know, light gray or whatever, and then set the strength to 1, so it's going to be real dark. So in the world tab here, I set the world to, I unchecked the camera box, because if you check it, you're going to have this background, which I didn't want. I want it to be dark. Then you can go to render animation out, and then yeah, there you have it. Make sure it's JPEG if you want the black background. If you don't, just set it to PNG. Thing is with PNG, if you have transparent background, the fire here is going to look extremely grainy, and it's not going to solve itself with any denoising stuff you're going to use in After Effects or whatever the fuck you're going to use. So you might want to be mindful of that. But yeah, that's how you do this effect, and that's about it. Thank you for watching, and go fuck yourself.